Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Talk of the Town. This week, we're here, episode 15, 5 away
15.
from 20. And we have a special guest. I know I say that every week, but I really do think that all of our guests are impressive. And particularly today, we have two-time national best-selling author and public speaker, Debrina Jackson Gandy. Thank you for joining us today, Debrina.
Absolutely, my
Welcome.
pleasure.
We're so excited to have you, and we're going to dig deep into these books that you've written and your motivation behind them, and talk a little bit of experience with marriage. And Bradley's engaged. She's getting married in July, so he
Yes.
needs all the tricks,
Definitely.
Okay.
all the
All right,
tips.
some questions.
He
I
also
love
needs
it.
to read your books.
Yes.
And I'm married, moving on 4 years now, so we
Okay.
can
Oh
we
my
can tap
goodness.
into your expertise on parenting, relationships, and all that. So thank you for
Let's
being
do
here.
it. Let's do it.
Perfect. So we'll talk a little bit before we get into your introduction. We do have a word of the day every show. And this week, our word of the day is querulous, which means habitually complaining, which I know from the little that I do know about your life, you stay away from people who are querulous. Am I accurate to assume that?
Yes.
Okay. So Debrina was telling us that she doesn't even watch the news because it's, tell us again, doom,
Death, doom, destruction.
death, doom, and destruction. I don't know anyone who would disagree with that nowadays, which I think is a ridiculously healthy habit and goes into, what we talk about as far as health and fitness and self-care. It's a perfect way to take care of yourself because, yes, death, doom, destruction all the time. You rarely see anything positive.
Yeah, I was just talking with one of my professors here at SU about a news reporter that came to our class, and we ended up speaking about the WTO protest here in Seattle. And I was like, hey, remember during that protest, you guys only looked at Nike Town and Starbucks, the glasses being broken, and didn't talk about free trade or anything like that. And she was like, well, bad stuff sells, and people
They
tune
know
into
that.
bad stuff. So, yeah, that's a great practice because they definitely know that. And on May Day, it's a great topic.
Yeah. We don't need any querulous people around us. So tell us about your books. So you have 3 national best-selling books, one called Sacred Pampering Principles, the other All the Joy You Can Stand, and then the third, The Love Lies. The most recent is The Love Lies, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, 2 of them are bestsellers. The
Oh,
Love
2
Lies is
bestsellers.
not yet.
Yet.
Yes.
I like that you said that.
That yet's
Manifestation.
important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I never thought I would be a nationally published author. For real. I mean, I was a little girl with a little typewriter in my journals, but I didn't think it would actually happen. And I had no idea how you got yourself on a bookshelf or this was pre-Amazon, of course. So it was libraries and bookshelves and retail stores. And it was even before Barnes and Noble and Borders, the big box stores.
Right.
And it was a bunch of serendipitous meetings and things aligning. And my sister, Iyanla Vanzant, they both were very key in how that all converged.
Interesting.
And so the first book, Sacred Pampering Principles, came out in 97. And it actually was the result of the evolution of a self-published book I had done that came out 4 years prior.
Okay.
And Iyanla Vanzant at one of the African American Women on Tour conferences where she was a speaker and I was a speaker, she bought a couple copies of my book at my sister's prompting, who was her executive assistant at the time. And
degrees of separation.
And Iyanla was having a conversation with her literary agent, and somehow my book came up in the conversation. And our agent, Denise Stinson was her name at the time, said, do you have a copy of that you can send me? And Iyanla sent her the book. And she reached out and said, I think this would make a great national book project to pitch to one of the national publishers. And we worked on a book proposal and me learning how this whole literary world works because I had no idea.
Right.
And so that book came out in 97 and it talked about sacred principles for pampering your spirit and pampering your body. And it really brought this term self-care into the vernacular of particularly Black women. So now I hear Black women say it left and right in magazine articles, but when that book came out in 97, that wasn't even in our language as Black women. So it really brought that phrase into our consciousness. And I didn't think I would write another book. People started asking, well, when's your next book? And I'm like, my next book, I'm still relishing in the fact that
yeah.
You know, I'm a nationally published author with books all over the country. And
right.
Can I just dwell on that a minute? And
it took me a while to get to that first one.
Yes.
You got the second one already.
Gosh, yeah. So
then you know the routine. You know, like what steps to take, what worked, what did not work.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
The whole book tour scene, and we authors still had book tours back in that day. And so understood now how all that worked, and went for a second book. And Denise said, you know, let's do it. Okay. Then it was like, well, what is this book going to be about? And as a result of my journey with the first book, because my life is always, I'm like the guinea pig for my books, is this whole piece about joy and its relationship to your personal power as a woman. And so I'm like, okay, so this one's going to be about joy. And then after that second book, there was a huge gap because that book came out in 2000 and The Love Lies came out in 2014. And I definitely wanted to have another book in that interim, but just the way things worked out, there was another book idea that I pitched, and my agent, I had a new agent by then, didn't like it. It didn't quite catch on. You know, some other attempts at things that just didn't have, the fire never got hot enough for it to really take. And went through some stuff in my marriage, which was one of the inspirations for the third book, The Love Lies. So that's how those all came about. They come out of my own life and learnings and growth and insights. And also I do transformational work, so it also comes out of the work I do around the country. So often people write a book and then they start to speak about it, and I've been doing facilitating programs and courses and all that, and my book tend to be a result of my live work with people. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite introduce how I came about approaching Debrina to come on the show, but as we've spoken about, I am a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and at my very first state meeting, Debrina was our keynote speaker. And you know the saying that you will rarely remember what people say to you, but you will remember how they make you feel. And I just remember my sorors, and I just felt so empowered after hearing you speak. And I just always remembered your name and would see you here and there at different events. So you're definitely making an impact and
awesome.
Just touching the lives. I mean, even when we talked before the show, I have a tendency to take to the weather for the day, and you know, I have a lot more energy when the sun comes out. And Debrina says, well, I don't let the weather dictate what my mood is. So you know what, that is, I should take after that a little bit more, because it's so easy in Washington to let the weather affect you. But definitely your internal sunshine has to shine brighter. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for those jewels. So in addition to writing your books, tell us a little bit about some of your other projects. So there was the Love Academy, which sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah, it does.
Tell us a little bit more about the Love Academy.
Well, the Love Academy is actually the precursor to the book, The Love Lies.
Okay.
So I was doing Love Academy first. And after my marriage, which almost crashed, burned, and became a divorce statistic, was restored, transformed, better than ever, process that I went through to be a catalyst for the transformation, I was ready to go public with it starting around 2009. So in my marriage journey, that whole dark night of the soul piece was about 5 or 6 years. And so in 2009, I was ready to share some of these spiritual downloads, as I call them in the book, that I received during that time, the exercises, the processes, the growing up that was part of the journey that the divine took me through. And it started with 8 women in my living room. It wasn't even called the Love Academy yet. And they were there for 5 hours and did not want to leave. And they're like, yes, take this public. I said, are you sure? I don't want the same old. We have so much relationships, information out there, and I'm not looking to be part of that morass of more confusion or just the same thing we already have. They said, oh, no. This is fresh. This is outside the box. This is a new paradigm. I said, okay. So that's how Love Academy started. And they said, we want more. Those 8 women came back in a month, and they had friends in tow. There were 16 people in my living room. And then the word started to get out, because women, you know, we talk and share. And so one of those women called another student of mine from a previous class down in California, said, oh my gosh, Debrina did this thing called, it wasn't even called Love Academy yet. And it was amazing. And so that California student and client said, well, we want her to bring it down here. And so she called me, we want you to bring it down here, and I'll gather the women and you come. And so I'd never thought about it going outside the state of Washington. So I had to think of a whole new model. Okay, how do I do that when it's out of state and I'm traveling somewhere? And okay, now I got to have a host, and what is their responsibility, and who fills the room? And that was my first outside the state Love Academy at the end of 2009. And between 2009 and 2013, I did over 45 Love Academies all around the country, and all on request.
Are they for females only?
Love Academy 101 and Love Academy 201 are for females. But interestingly enough, but not surprisingly, after a few Love Academies, the women started saying, well, what do you have for the men?
Yeah, sure. That was my next question.
Right?
Both parties.
And interestingly enough, during that 6-year span, and particularly those first 90 days of where the work on me really intently began. During that time, I was given these really powerful spiritual insights, and I was given a specific set for women, hence the name The Love Lies, and also a set for men, because men are socialized, as we know, very differently around relationships. And so there's a set of male love lies that are very distinct and separate from the female love lies. So I didn't know why I was given the male love lies. I just kind of tucked them away in my journal, and then it became clear when women started saying, well, what do you have for the men? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I do have this whole set of faulty, flawed beliefs that men specifically receive in their gender programming experience. Maybe I'm supposed to start sharing that with men. And so Mentality 101 and Mentality 201 was born. Mentality. It's hyphenated. Isn't that great? Yeah. So, and then the Covenant Academy was born out of that, which is specifically for married people, because married folks started
like
saying,
a retreat, or
no, it's not a retreat.
Okay.
It's a full day intensive like Love Academy or Mentality, but it's married couples. Yeah. And then I also have Courtship Academy, because modern day courtship is something I talk about in the Love Lies, which is an alternative and a replacement of dating as we've been doing it.
Right.
And so women were like, this is we got to rewire our thinking. We're used to the dating scenario. And so, particularly single women, like, we need a courtship class.
Right.
And so that's how Courtship Academy came about. So all those are under the umbrella of Love Academy. And then Love Academy 101 is the one that's specifically for women. So who would have known that, my little journey would turn into all those offerings? And then people started saying, well, you need to write a book. Everybody can't make it to a live event.
Right.
Yeah.
You need to write a book. I'm like, no, I'm not going to write a book on love relationships. It's too messy, And I finally succumbed, obviously. And now what's come out of that is just amazing. Like, there's a Facebook group that I started called the Relationships Cafe. And in 30 days.
So many titles we need to keep track of.
Yeah. And in 30 days, we had 1,000 members.
Nice.
People have Facebook groups for, months and months and months trying to get to 1,000. And in 30 days. So, I never cease to be amazed at what is happening with this love relationships stuff. And there's at least that I know of, because of course after doing 45 of them, I can't keep up with every person, but people really do try to circle back to give me feedback and testimonies. And so to date, there's 37 marriages that have resulted from women that have done Love Academy with me and get detoxed from the old and have stepped into a new paradigm. So that's pretty groovy. That's just the ones I personally know about.
That's beautiful.
And are those courtships that moved into marriages, or are those marriages that were in what you call the dark space? Or
no, those are new marriages.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great
including
statistic.
women that were divorced that got remarried, then marriages that might have ended up in divorce that got averted. That's a whole nother statistic, and I don't have those
the numbers
tracked as.
Sure.
I mean, still, that's amazing work. That's amazing work that you're doing. I mean, I'm not surprised that 1,000 people entered the Love Cafe in 30 days. I mean, we all know Maslow's hierarchy. We all need love. It's just basic. Love and connection.
Do relationships coaching with couples that are engaged.
Nice.
Like premarital coaching? Premarital counseling?
Well, yeah, if you're engaged, it's before you're married.
Right. I'm looking at him outside of my eye.
Yeah, but it can't just be well, actually, I had one couple that said, we are very clear that we want to be engaged, and we want to be engaged on the path to marriage. And I said, okay, I'll work with you even though you're a couple and not yet and engaged, and that got them prepared to be engaged.
Yeah.
And then, we tend to use engagement period as a time for the woman to plan the wedding instead of to really engage our spirits and engage our growth and to prepare emotionally and mentally and communicationally. I made up a word, communicationally. So yeah, it's been really amazing all that has opened up with just that third book, not to mention the other two.
That's great. I love to hear that. I love to hear the success stories. I love to hear the fact that so many people are touched by the work that you're doing, and the Love Academy specifically. I'm like a sucker for things like that, like love languages and knowing, zodiac signs, all of that. All that stuff I'm a sucker for. But that's all amazing. I also really enjoy the fact that it happens so organically. This is the second week that we've talked about something starting in someone's living room and really growing and connecting that to like when you're passionate about something and you're walking your purpose, it just all falls into place. And also intentionality. So we've talked about in previous shows dating for marriage and being very intentional about those next steps, and I love that you are preaching that and have a curriculum for people to follow who are not maybe not as religious, because we know a lot of Christians are familiar with courting and courtship and what that process looks like, but for those who don't identify with
Christians have the same worst divorce rate in the world as the rest of the secular United States. The United States has the worst divorce rate of any country on the planet. We have over 100 nations, and then Christians don't have a single percentage point better. So we don't get to pop our collar, and so unfortunately there's no exemption.
I just meant as far as familiarity with courtship and the courting process. I think
There's more confusion because we have religion in there, and most people aren't studying. They're only going to a service and listening and hearing, but not studying and seeking discernment on their own. So there's more confusion, actually.
Interesting.
And unfortunately,
interesting.
And I tested out at the beginning of Covenant Academy.
Yeah,
I have to humble people first. I don't have to humble people; they need to be humbled first, so they can hear. And we think that we know, and so I just ask a few questions and point a few things out, so people are like, oh my God, we really don't know. I said, so now can you be here with a beginner's mind, and now can you be here with your arrogance aside, and, just to get prepared Christian folk, to be able to listen, because we think we have so much figured out that when you look at the evidence, unfortunately, we don't have the evidence to show. So we all are in a pretty much the same boat of confusion and breakdown and frustration and irritation and being unhealed, haven't done our forgiveness work, immature emotionally. That's kind of the American state of relationships.
I wonder how much social media has to do with that as well. Because it seems like relationships aren't lasting as long as they used to. Now that everybody is able to be touched, it seems like, in a way,
Yeah, there's so much information available.
Yeah.
And people can really just choose what they want to take. That kind of applies to the situation at the time.
Right.
Well, I think it's reduced relationships to lust.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten confused about what love is and how love behaves. And even our so-called love songs are really talking about either ownership, territoriality, control, domination, or lust in the name of a love song. Right. And so now you might not even know their middle name or their last name, but they're in your body. Right. Your body's of join.
Right.
And so it commoditizes, I made up another word, commoditizes intimacy, intercourse, and sex. Right. So that is not designed to be commoditized. So there's always going to be byproducts and negative effects, whether we're aware of it or not. And also because technology also can create isolation, contrary to all of the be more connected rhetoric.
Right.
And then we crave touch, and we go straight to the most intense form of touch, which is intercourse, and because we're missing contact, the warmth of a hand or a hug, and so we're really touch deprived, which makes us even more lust focused. So it's
physical touch is one of my love languages.
Definitely,
I'm a hugger. Definitely.
Oh, I love it. We all are, if we haven't had trauma or if we came from a family that supported it, because we're just designed that way. Just look at the number of sensors per square inch in our skin. Our love language is touch.
Yeah.
And then whatever else your personal, more specific one may be.
I love that you strip your participants down before allowing them to open up or asking them to open up, to be present. I think that's a great practice in marriage, is to just humble yourself before, during any conflict, any disagreement, to just put yourself in a humble space before you enter it, because otherwise egos take over.
Yeah, and that's more so with the group work, not with couples. The preparation's a little bit different, but in the groups, whether it's mentality, not even so much mentality, because I was really surprised and had my own assumptions challenged, because I thought the men would be more resistant and their egos would make it harder for them to hear. I was absolutely incorrect. And women's egos are much more slippery, and we're much more sophisticated in our avoidance and owning of our part in creating mess. And men are much more honest, much more forthcoming, and not so worried about what, let me see what so-and-so says before I share. Right. Men will just come out, and they're coming to get theirs because they paid money and their time is valuable. And so it blew so many of my preconceived ideas out of the water. And every single mentality has been that way, whether it's here, whether it's in the Midwest, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's in New York, doesn't matter, whether it's in DC. And so the men came humbly. It's the women that tend to come with more arrogance, actually.
Need to be stripped down a little bit more. Okay. So you talked a little bit about your dark days, your dark period in your marriage. Can I ask how long you've been married now?
25.
Wow.
It's a big accomplishment. This year.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Quarter of a century.
Yes. Oh, I think we almost threw in the towel.
Yeah.
Woo!
And now it's better than ever.
It's juicy. That's what I talk. Juicy.
I love that. You need that in a marriage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can I ask what I'm curious, because 5 to 6 years of darkness seems like a long time, and most people would, after 6 months, be like, okay, this is not going to work for me. What did that process look like? Was it just daily, seeing one another?
Well, we still lived in the same house.
Okay.
And, sometimes couples go through an extended separation and all that. So this was almost like the plane is in flight and you're trying to repair it. And God chose to use me as the catalyst, or maybe I raised my hand. It was an invitation, actually, and I said yes. And so I didn't know what the invitation was to. The promise was that our marriage would be restored and better than ever. Like, okay, well, how long is that going to take? And what's it going to require? And I don't know. We've been working on this for 4 years, and we've already gone to 3 and 4 counselors and therapists and pastors and had people praying and read the books. We've already done that. What could you offer that we haven't already tried? Talk about arrogance.
Sure.
Woo! And so here was the invitation. I have a process, daughter, and if you are interested and you follow it and you don't deviate, then your marriage will be restored and made better than ever.
Amen.
So after wringing my hand, being doubtful and all that, I finally said yes. And the first 90 days was really about revealing the love lies to me. The faulty, flawed, false beliefs that I was calling this is how you do relationships, and it being exposed how it was based upon a foundation of lies, and hence the reasons we have the outcomes we have.
Right.
And so those were being revealed. It's like, what? Like, bam, bam, bam. I didn't think I had any of the love lies. I thought other women had the love lies. Not me. I'm the author. I'm the coach. I'm the speaker.
Gotta go through it.
I've been no for so. I'm not supposed to have love lies. I had love lies. And so if I have love lies, and we all do. Because I'm the one that coaches other people and speaks to other people in rooms. And so the first was just exposing all the love lies that were alive in me and showing up in my marriage, and me understanding what was at the root of why things had gone and were going the way they were going. So that was powerful. 90 days of just like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And then began what in the book I call the detox. And if you have ingested poison, then you got to detox.
Gotta get it out.
Right? And if you eat something and your body knows this is not in agreement, it will try to get it out. And it ain't pretty. It doesn't even smell good. But afterwards, oh my gosh, you feel like a new person.
Yeah, that was the process I went going to vegetarian.
How long ago?
About 16 months now, so about a year and a half almost.
Okay.
Yeah, it was ugly process for the first 3
You had
weeks.
withdrawals?
Yeah, bacon. Whenever I smell bacon, I want to fight people. You know?
Then or now?
Even today. But it was real bad for that first 3 weeks. And then also the cleansing, like you said, of the poisons and all the stuff that I ate for years and years and years.
That's
it was
right.
like my body just came clean again. So it was really nice.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a similar kind of process. So after the 90 days of the revelation, then the next 9 months was the detox. And then I had to learn how to now walk out a new set of beliefs called the love truths. So for every love lie that I present in my book, there's a love truth. Well, if you've been 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years operating in the love lies and everybody else's, and it's reinforced every which way you look in the conversation, how people are engaging, the music, the sitcom plots, the movie scripts, that's a lot of different inputs that are all reinforcing something that's failing us epically. So, so just to learn how to now behave from a different belief system, you know, I had to work the muscle. In my book, I talk about manese and womanese. And so I came to realize I was speaking womanese to my husband, right? It was I'm being clear. I didn't stutter. Why doesn't he get it? He's not listening, you know. And no, I'm speaking womanese to him. And I need to learn how to speak manese. So there was a communication skill upgrade that had to happen that, you know, at that point, it was 14 years of marriage. No one had said, are you bilingual? Wow. Can you speak womanese and manese? They just said, ooh, girl, he's fine. Ooh, yeah, congratulations. No one said, have you done any healing work? You know, and so we are so ill-equipped, most of us, when we get married. And so I was finally getting equipped after 14 years. And then we would still, one of us would activate the other, and then or trigger the other, and then we, you know, whatever progress we made, there was a loss of some ground, you know. So that went on, you know. So you're inching forward to, and so
you're working through like
all
within.
That's right. And then behaviors can actually become entrained in your body, right? So we had to get those behaviors out of our systems. And so it took some time to really be complete and thorough in the process. So it wasn't all dark. It was some of the darkest times of my life just because it was kicked my butt. But the whole process, you know, to be thorough and complete and not just the beginning or the middle, you know, took about 5 years altogether for us to truly, you know, recover fully and be in the juicy space.
I think that's such an amazing rebirth. I just think of so many different people that I would just love to just wash in that process. Just 90 days. But again, we've talked a lot about the most frustrating thing as an adult is to want something for someone else that they're not ready for themselves or not ready to kind of even get started in that process. So I love to hear that. And I'm happy you all are in your juicy space. I mean, if nothing else, a marriage should be that juicy space. How was that balancing that process with children?
It was very hard because, for one, we thought we were insulating them from it, that they weren't really aware, you know, what was going on, and we're, you know, because we didn't like argue in front of them or anything. So, you know, we were always trying to, you know, manage that well so their lives wouldn't be. But I told my daughters when they turned 18 that, because I figured they were just older and had more maturity, that if they had any questions, you know, about that phase of, you know, me and their dad's life, I would be glad to share it. My husband was like, you know, let sleeping dogs lie. They don't need to know. But I'm like, well, kids are very aware, particularly energetically, of what's going on with their parents. And they're very tuned into the slightest nuances. And so I wanted them to be able to understand that their perception, their intuitive perception, their energy read was on, so they could trust themselves. So I said, at 18, if you have any questions, you know, let me know. So our middle daughter was 18 for, I think, I don't know, 2 minutes. She was like, I got questions. And our other daughter,
grab the cake, Mom. Let's go sit on the couch.
I've been waiting.
That's great.
And then our oldest daughter said, I think I already know. And I'm like, well, can you just ask me so I can confirm? And they were both spot on, even timelines. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, when did you start feeling that there was tension? Even though you might not have known based on how we were trying not to act that there was tension. And I mean, down to the month. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
you were only 7, you know. And so it was an opportunity for them to see, yes, I was on point with what I was sensing, and to trust that.
Yeah.
And also, we're humans. We're your parents, but we're humans. We were working through stuff, and you know, so often we have our parents, I think, pedestalized as if they're superhuman or something, and it's like, no. We're real people like you. We just have a different assignment to be your parents, and we've been on the planet a little longer. And I think we exempt, like, we're not truthful with our kids, and it causes doubt in your system, and it causes you to distrust because. Right, and then you say, Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, and you saw a tear run down her cheek. You know, no, you're not fine, but she just lied. So then, okay, it's okay to lie, and she just lied to me, and so now lying is acceptable, because right in the name of trying to protect the child from my sadness. Well, you know, are you okay, Dad? Actually, no, I'm not okay. I'm actually not, you know, and so we started, you know, training our kids that lying is acceptable inside the household, and you know, we don't even realize it.
Right.
So I wanted them to be able to ask questions, and knew they were mature enough, you know, to hear the truth, and they're stronger because of it, because we leveled with them.
Right.
So
as adults.
Beautiful.
I love kids' energy. I love my son to this day. If we go to the grocery store, he's a social kid. He'll say hi to everyone, but certain people who I'm already a little cautious about will reach out to pick him up, and he'll give them nothing. And I love that he has that filter already, and will not ask him to change that. I value that so much. I think that
kids and pets, they still have, they're pretty pure
sense.
About being able to read energy. We've gotten corrupted as adults, that we don't even trust our own energy read.
Emotional intelligence is so important. So important. Being able to just sit in what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and distinguishing the two.
And a lot of times people put their energy readers to the side now for a facade or some type of image for the social media, like we spoke about earlier, and they'll just put up with anything almost to have something, you know, which is unfortunate.
Oh my gosh.
I see it all the time.
All the time. Oh my goodness.
So, Debrina, I wanted to ask you, I just happened to see you on social media at a recent conference, Living My Life Like It's Golden conference. Can you tell us a little bit about
it? It was actually an empowerment breakfast.
A
women's
breakfast?
Empowerment breakfast,
Okay.
And it was actually a collaboration with 3 other awesome women. And I actually had done this women's empowerment breakfast using this particular template and model 5 previous times. So 3 times in Seattle, 2001, 2, and 3. And then most recently in Portland, 2016 and 17. And one of the participants who had been to all 5 of them drove from here down to Portland, said, "You've got to bring it back. You've got to bring it back to Seattle."
Ride or die.
And I said, well, if I find, you know, because I've collaborated with another person for all the other ones, this was 3 other collaborators. But I said, if I find the right collaborators, then I'm glad to bring it back. Even though I don't usually go back to things, I do things and then move on to my next evolutionary steps. So I said, okay, I'd be willing to go back to this. And so had a brainstorm with another friend, and we came up with the title. And then we said, if we were going to invite 2 others to collaborate with us, who might it be? And the same names came out of both of our mouths. And so that's how that came about. And it was, well, just as the other ones have all been sold out, this one was sold out. The difference was it was the biggest one, and it was sold out after adding 30 more spaces, and still sold out a week and a half early from the, you know, the published registration deadline. So
it's easy
that
when
was
you're
really
adding value
groovy.
to people's lives.
And people are ready, right? And when they're ready,
when they want it,
yeah,
absolutely. And so, have you had the opportunity to work with Iyanla Vanzant since your initial days with your book?
No, and even then it wasn't that I worked with her. We both were speakers with the African American Women on Tour, And then, since she was the one who introduced me to her literary agent, and we had the same literary agent for a few years, I asked her to do the endorsement quote that you can.
On your book.
It's on the version of it. Well, hers is on the back, but on the version that says bestseller, her quote's right here on the top on the paperback version.
Nice.
And so we haven't actually worked together yet. She has probably the closest is that she and her Silver Spring corporate headquarters, I think she still does it. She would have this thing called Wonder Woman Weekends, and so she invited me out to be the featured guest on one of those Wonder Woman weekends years ago.
Silver Spring, Maryland. Interesting. My father's entire side of the family is in Silver Spring.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh, I love it because it's just right on that border with DC. And then when she was in Seattle 2 weeks ago at the Paramount, she did this thing where you had to be part of her posse, meaning you had to post a picture with you and a group of women, and if you were the biggest group in the audience, you got to stay after and take a photo. And so, I was gonna call her people and see if I could come back and see her in the green room, and then April, May even more so, was just so full, and I just didn't get around to it. So then when I was actually sitting there and the program was almost over, I said, I'm gonna just be kind of obstinate and not leave and kind of work my way over there. And they were being very serious about, you need to clear out unless you are the posses that she identified from the stage. It was like, whoa. And it must be in the contract because the Paramount staff was getting people out, and her crew was, you had to show a picture to show you were a crew. I really am a posse.
Oh, wow.
And they were like evidence. And so with all that, I stayed right there and was able to, take a picture with her and greet her and chat with her a few minutes.
Nice. Good.
Yeah, it was great. So
full circle moment.
Yeah, but we haven't worked together yet.
I love your use of the word yet. Manifest.
It was so great to see her.
Awesome.
She looks the best.
Well, she's had a lot of success with her show.
She looks the best. That's so encouraging.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Shining from the inside out. Those are the best looks. So you wanted to talk a little bit about the Elevate movement.
Yes, because that's current and that is still happening. And that's actually, it started with a kickoff event last January, the same weekend that number 45 was inaugurated. And it was a divinely inspired movement, as so much of what I do is divinely inspired. And the charge was to be a catalyst in elevating the consciousness of African Americans in Seattle. Oh boy, what an undertaking. Like, I don't think I'm the one. I think you got me confused with, an activist. I don't know, somebody else. I'm an activist in my own way, but, my thing's empowerment, transformation, personal growth, spiritual development. So how did I get tagged for this? And so I was obedient and lined up a powerful day of motivation that had 4 African American male motivational speakers, and 4 African American female, and filled out the ballroom at the Doubletree Suites by Hilton in South Center, and had vendors, and people were just mind blown because the vibe was so high. And what happened from that elevated vibration, the connections and the collaborations that happened, the new clients, the new contracts, people were just like, oh my gosh. Well, I thought I was done, and I wasn't. Then there was another assignment to gather people in the summer and network and go to Black venues. And then I'm thinking, okay, great, that was wonderful through the summer, wonderful. Oh, there's more. What? And then it was what went on to be called the Elevate Revolution event, which was a half-day event at Langston Hughes Theater or Institute. And this was more of a coaching emphasis, coaching and teaching. So now it's about implementing some things in your life around 4 primary focus areas. So money and business, health and wellness, healthy love relationships, and Black identity, personal development, and personal growth and spiritual development. And 75 folks turned out, and then the instruction was offer a 6-month extended cohort opportunity around each of those 4 areas. I'm like, Seattle people, we're still learning how to self-invest. We'll go pay for a concert ticket, but around personal growth, well, this was people with more of an elevated consciousness that were even in the room. So half the people signed up for one of the 4 6-month pathways. And so as that was, moving along, I tapped on the shoulder 3 other of the gentlemen who were involved in the money business pathway. And I said, we have these folks with an elevated consciousness. They trust, because we've been doing these great events since January, and they're all great and sold out and full and well done and on time. And I said, what if we pooled our money? Because now the trust is there. We pooled our money, and that money went to empower Black businesses, no, African American businesses in the greater Seattle area. And they said, let's do it. And we had a 1-year anniversary event January of this year, so exactly 1 year from when the first kickoff event was. And everyone that was in the 6-month pathways, this was our midway marks. It was called Party with a Purpose. You could bring guests, and so we unveiled the Elevate Direct Impact Dollars initiative.
That's awesome.
And so the initiative is about getting 50 individuals or 50 married couples to contribute $350 each, and having a pool of money, $15,000 approximately when you take out the fiscal agent fee and all that, and parsing it out in small award amounts, $22,000 to $3,500 to 5 to 7 African American owned businesses. And they need to repay it. It's not a loan, but they need to repay it with a small nominal administrative fee, so that we then can replenish the pool and empower another 5 to 7 businesses. And all the contributors have a vote. And so when the businesses apply, the core planning team and the other 3 people I mentioned do the first screening, and then we take the short list to the contributor. Every contributor gets a vote, and we make the contributions. And to existing African American businesses, because it's about leveraging it to really expand your capacity, not trying to provide you capital to launch. There's businesses and programs for that. And so we launched it, and the response was just amazing. I spoke at the Africatown State of the Community event, because Wyking Garrett and Africatown are our outreach partners for it. And, so it's just, again, organic, awesome. Blown my mind. That's I was speaking awesome. At a women's business event in November at the end of last year. And Banner Bank was there, who was one of the sponsors of that particular luncheon. And so the sponsor and the president of the group, we were all at the, main table, whatever. And he told this great story, because they said, what's a great memory from 2017? We're doing a reflection question. And he told this story of how they helped out this business client, and really went above and beyond. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a bank with a heart. How refreshing. And about 3 weeks later, the divine said, reach out to the guy that was at your table. I'm like, this is a movement that's built off of dollars from community members. We don't need an institution who now says expand it to be persons of color. No, this is African Americans, and I'm not diluting it. And
talked back.
Right? And so call him, let him know about the initiative. Okay, once again, being obedient. And I call, and I go back the beginning of January 2016, and I lay out all the things that have happened. I thought he would be like, what? I don't get it. I'm overwhelmed. This is too much. Jesus, got it. Love it. I want to pass it on to my Community Reinvestment Act officer. Here's what I need. Give me this, give me this, give me this. I'm like, oh, okay. They contact us and say, we want to take you to lunch. I said, well, I roll with 3 other folks, so you had to take all 4 of us to lunch, right? I got 3 brothers I roll with. We all got to go. They're, okay, bring them all. And so that was a pivotal lunch. They asked for some more information, and they informed us that they were going to contribute $2,500 to the DID fund, and then they came back to us and said, actually, we're going to give you $500 more than we initially said. So here we have an institution that's contributing $3,000.
Oh, blessing! Shout out to Banner Bank.
Shout out to Banner Bank, and we did not dilute who our target market is, which is often the request. There's this talk of inclusion when it's African American, and it's no longer talk of target market and a certain population. And no one else is required to include us, but we're required to include everybody. So I said, no, I'm very clear about who this is for.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
good.
That's good. So they got it. And I made a case for why it's African American. And they're like, okay. So
that's amazing.
So that is going on right now.
What
the
a
Direct
testament.
Impact Dollar Initiative is going on right now. And we still have a few more spaces before we get to our 50. We already have 21 people that have actually given their $350. and people had a commitment form they filled out. And so that's really exciting.
Okay. So where can people donate if they want to contribute?
So let's see here. Folks should send me an email. Let's see here. No, it's I'm going to give them we have a fiscal agent, nonprofit fiscal agent, handling the money because my company's for profit. Mm-hmm. So it's NWILC.org, which stands for Northwest Institute for Leadership and Change, NWILC.org. And you click on projects, and there will be the Elevate DID initiative and the contribution link. So it's a tax deductible and all that kind of thing. And the fiscal agent is also African American executive directed. So we're excited.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
We talk about Black history on this show, 365, and I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to make history.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And in addition to having a Black historian here, we do have another native Seattle Black history fact for today. So yesterday, the founder of Seattle Children's Clinic, Odessa Brown, was born. So happy birthday to Odessa Brown.
Yay,
happy
Odessa.
birthday.
Who's contributed a ton to the Central District, Seattle area children and families. Fun fact, I used to work with her son when I worked at a crisis center for at-risk youth, and he was amazing. So yeah, happy birthday, Odessa Brown. Thank you for having your brainchild that has contributed so much to the community. So we were going to hit on some current events. We'll see where the time leads us. But I want to know, because you shared your age with us, I don't know if you want to share with the people, but I want to know how you keep your skin so flawless and looking like you're 22.
Oh, bless your heart.
With 3 children.
Shea butter. Shea
like
butter.
The natural
Black
which
woman's comes
pack.
from the shea nut tree in our original continent.
Right.
And our skin responds so phenomenally to shea butter. So the products I use on my skin always are at least 50% shea butter. And if it's a sunny day, because I love to go out in the sun and brown up, all I need is shea butter, and it provides all the protection. I don't need synthetic SPF or any of that. And particularly, putting products on your skin at night. So often we have this morning routine, and we're doing all these things, but at night is the ideal time to put shea butter products on, or cocoa butter.
My grandmother used to do ponds at night. And just let it sit in.
There we go.
But I wish I could use more shea butter. My son is allergic to tree nuts, and so shea,
including shea,
it's on the tree nut list, and so I just get nervous to buy any products with shea in it.
But have you tested it? Is he
not
actually
interested in testing that? It was a cashew that he actually had a reaction to, and then we just got the full list, and we just
it said shea on it?
Yeah,
I'm so surprised.
I know.
Well, I would be very surprised if he had, and he's not ingesting it, but I would be very surprised if his skin had an allergic reaction to shea butter.
And we used cocoa butter on his skin for like his first year of life before we found out that he was allergic to tree nuts, and we just thought he had really dry skin, and then we switched his lotion up and it all went away. So we have at least until 4. They say that a lot of kids grow out of their allergies after the age of 4. So at least until 4, we have to be cautious about that. But I'll keep that secret locked and loaded.
Yeah, you can always test it, like on the inside of the ankle, or something like that. So, but I would just
the mom of 3 who's not afraid. I'm like, I got my EpiPen. I don't want to test it.
Got EpiPen and lotion in hand.
Right.
Well, I would just be so surprised because our cells remember, and putting shea butter on our skin was something that we did for thousands of years, and we've only been here several hundred. So and cells have memory. So if you ever get bold enough to try it, and it's topical, it's not where he's ingesting.
I'll work up the nerve.
Okay, yeah.
So what else do you do as far as your health and fitness? Because you look great, and I'm hoping after 3 kids that I can level up.
Well, I was an athlete, and that goes a long way, from 3rd grade all the way to my senior year of high school.
Yeah, your body's just conditioned.
And your muscles get conditioned. After pregnancy, you tend to lose the weight more readily. Those who were athletes in high school, and my husband all the way through college, but you tend to have a more active lifestyle simply because athletics was such an integral part of your education and your life. So like this morning I was playing pickleball, which is a mix between like tennis and racquetball and ping pong.
Yeah.
And every morning I do, even if it's only for 1 minute, I will do some kind of stretching and movement to get my blood moving, my heart pumping. And actually, once you're over 40, I definitely noticed that my metabolism started to slow down. I'm like, oh, that's real. It is really real. So instead of parking at the closest spot, for example, parking, it's okay if it's 2 rows down and you got to walk a minute, or coming up the light rail, they're all below ground. So instead of taking the escalator, take the stairs. You don't find many people taking the stairs.
Yeah.
So just little things like that. And my eating has also changed. I cut meat out again, I would say in the last, I think it's been about 6 months. And it's not a obsessive cut meat out. It's, if I'm somewhere or whatever and I say, I'm going to have some shrimp tonight, or I'm going to have some chicken. But I do. So it's not one of those, oh, I must not,
Right.
And some people are more intense about it. I'm not. I'm relaxed. And that helps me stay committed to it if it's not a have to, must, militaristic kind of thing. Right. So, and that includes fish. Fish is meat. Fish is meat. Some people say, oh, do you eat fish? I said, I don't eat meat.
Yeah.
So fish is meat. I don't know how fish got exempted from being flesh when it's got eyeballs and produces babies. And so fish is meat, and I cut meat out. And once in a while, I may decide to have some. And but there's nothing really radical.
It's just maintenance, regular maintenance,
lifestyle.
Yeah,
just trying to have it be lifestyle. If you were to, I try, when my girls were growing up and they're all fit and slim, is they didn't get bag, box, and canned food. And so they never went through the, dealing with that obesity or, kind of being a big girl or thick, and, things that we say are just how the Black community is built. No, all you got to do is look at all the pictures before 1960, and we were slim, trim, no guts, no hips, no wide hips. So, and then if you go to the motherland, people are slim, trim, muscular. Right. So what we say is just the way we're built. We're big boned. No, we are not. That is in the last 45 years.
Naturally, at least.
As we've had, high fructose corn syrup put into our food. Yeah. And how much sugar is added to everything, French fries. So if I eat out, I don't go to fast food restaurants. I'm going to go to a restaurant where I sit down, someone comes to the table. My daughters didn't go to McDonald's. They went to Subway. Yeah. And so even today, they will go to Subway, or they will go to El Rinconcito, which is fresh Mexican, because I shaped their taste buds by not going to McDonald's. And I would ask them questions like, okay, so if we go to Subway, they've got peppers and they've got onions and they've got tomatoes. How long ago do you think those were in? Like, we go to McDonald's and we get a hamburger. The cow ate the grass. But how long ago do you think it was when that cow ate the grass compared to how long ago that tomato was in the ground? And hopefully it was in the ground and not in a dripping greenhouse with not in any dirt. Yeah. And so I said, well, I want you to eat where the food was in the ground most recently. Okay, mommy, and so which is healthier.
So they're learning at the same time.
Yeah, so you create a positive association with eating healthy, which mothers can do and fathers can do, and we tend not to do. So those are some of the ways.
Tips and tricks. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. We had such a great, of course. I mean, you have to hear that more than just today. When you guys see Sabrina, you'll see what I'm talking about.
I heard it from you.
Of course. Well, we're so happy you were able to join us today and tell us about the impactful work that you're doing in the community and all of your books. Now, I'm sure Bradley's going to go out and get that.
Oh, yeah.
I need to get the Love Lies because I'm just interested.
Oh, my God.
I'm an Amazon Prime member, so
love it.
There we go.
Before you get home.
Exactly.
Amazon is too much. And the workshops, So we have tell me about the name of the cafe. I don't want to mess it up. Relationship Cafe. Love Academy.
But people can go to milliondollarmentor.net, which is Grand Central for all things Sabrina.
milliondollarmentor.net.
They can get connected to the Relationships Cafe, to my store. They want to find out what courses I'm doing. I have a elite retreat going on in September here in the Northwest and stuff all around the country, but that'll be something back here, and that's going to be at Skamania Lodge on the Columbia River. But that's where to stay tuned into is milliondollarmentor.net, and then everything kind of branches out from there.
I also love how you manifest all of these things into your life. The name of the site is Million Dollar Mentor. I love it. Well, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And check out milliondollarmentor.net.
.net. Yes.
.net. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.